Imagine a god making the worst clerical error in history and accidentally killing you. Instead of apologizing with a simple, oops, my bad, he sends you to another world with overpowered abilities. That's how the story of Kelvin begins. A guy who, instead of lamenting his fate, decides to enjoy every battle as if he were playing a video game on hard mode. So let's begin. Kelvin had no idea his life would end in the most absurd way possible. A divine mistake, a careless oops from a god, and bam, goodbye, cruel world. But not all is lost because Melfina, the goddess of reincarnation, gives him a second chance in another world. There's a catch, though. He will lose all his past memories. Why? Well, his former self thought it would be genius to trade his memories for more skill points. Risky, sure, but who needs memories when you can start out completely overpowered? Kelvin wakes up in an unfamiliar forest. Instead of questioning who he is or what's happening, the first thing he sees is a floating menu welcoming him to his new life. His new title, Summoner, a rare class in this world. To get started, the menu suggests heading to the nearest town, Parth, and registering with the Adventurers Guild. Straightforward enough until he checks his skills and finds something shocking. Melfina herself is listed as one of his summoned companions. Yes, his former self basically tamed a goddess like a legendary Pokemon. Upon arriving in Parth, Kelvin learns how Melfina became his companion. He fell in love with her at first sight and convinced her to join his adventure. Amused, she agreed, but on one condition: he would have to fall for her all over again. Kelvin, now without those memories, isn't sure if he should feel embarrassed or impressed with his past self. At the guild, Melfina warns him that being a summoner is too rare and would draw unwanted attention from nobility, so he registers under a cover class, Green Mage. The receptionist, Ange, explains the ranking system and assigns him his first mission: defeat 3 blue slimes. Simple, right? He picks up his ultra-powerful weapon, actually just a wooden staff, and heads to the fields. Confident, Kelvin uses his S-rank appraisal eye to analyze his targets and, following Melfina's advice, tries to tame one by weakening it first. Easy or not. The slime smacks him around and the world's future strongest summoner is nearly beaten by the weakest monster. Undeterred, he keeps trying until he forms a contract with one and names it Clotho. To his surprise, he can communicate with it through a mental link, what he calls his server network. Together, they start defeating more slimes and completing the quest. After his first victory, Melfina casually reveals that Kelvin is the only S-rank summoner in the world. His skills and companions will evolve far faster than anyone else's. He thinks it's unfair, but also too fun to complain. Back in town, Kelvin gets his reward and rents a decent inn room. On the way, he notices a slave merchant selling captive elves. One half-elf girl catches his eye, but with no money to spare, he moves on. At the Singing Spirit Inn, Kelvin enjoys his first meal in this new world. With his loyal slime, new skills, and the certainty that chaos awaits, he sets off hunting monsters again the next day, unaware that future allies and enemies are already waiting to meet him. Kelvin hasn't spent long at the Adventurers Guild, yet he's ranking up so fast that people are starting to talk. Rumors spread like wildfire. How is this guy advancing without a party? Ange worries. Higher ranks mean more dangerous missions, and without allies, survival rates drop. But Kelvin isn't worried. He's eager for a D-rank quest. Enter Cashel, a D-rank adventurer infamous as a rookie crusher, someone who preys on naive newcomers. With a smirk that says, "I'll use and betray you," Cashel invites Kelvin to join his team on a high-risk mission to hunt the Black Phantom Knight. Everyone knows Cashel's habit of disposing of potential threats, sometimes permanently, but no one dares warn Kelvin. Having appraised Cashel's stats and seen his assassin class, Kelvin isn't fooled, but also doesn't want to look cowardly. Instead, he flips the situation, challenging Cashel to a competition. May the best adventurer win. Cashel reluctantly agrees and leaves with his thuggish teammates Gimel and Raj, while Kelvin starts planning. At the haunted Spirit Castle ruins, Cashel's team struts in confidently, until they find skeletal remains scattered across the throne room. Kelvin emerges from hiding, staff in hand, smirking. "I was waiting for you." Raj charges in brute force and falls into a magical mire trap, immobilized. Gimel wisely tries to flee, but Clotho, now an enormous gluttony slime, intercepts and knocks him out. Cashel, left alone, fights back but is easily defeated by Kelvin. In seconds, the rookie crushers are bound and finished. Kelvin then faces his true target, the Black Phantom Knight. Using appraisal, he learns his name, Gerard. To his surprise, Gerard is not a mindless monster, but a vengeful spirit bound by unfinished business. Once a loyal knight of Alcarl, Gerard lost everything when emissary Gildora of the Lizea Empire offered Alcarl an alliance to destroy Daramis. When Alcarl refused, Gildora returned with overwhelming force, leaving the kingdom in ruins and Gerard's family dead. His sole purpose since has been vengeance. Moved, Kelvin asks Gerard to join him instead of being destroyed. Intrigued, Gerard agrees to test him. Their battle is fierce. Kelvin pushing his skills and Clotho's powers to the limit. In the end, Gerard's rage consumes him, forcing Kelvin to defend himself and subdue him. Back at the guild, Kelvin turns in Gerard's shattered armor for proof of the completed quest. The real shock comes when Ange reveals Cashel's team has been arrested and sentenced for their crimes. With no rivals left, Kelvin's reputation and the adventurer's wary respect soars. Better yet, Gerard has joined his roster of familiars, alongside Clotho and Melfina. As Kelvin climbs the guild stairs to meet Guildmaster Leo, he wonders what this man could want. Before moving forward, we glimpse the moment Kelvin tamed Gerard, sharing his power and painful memories, vowing to avenge him. In the present, Kelvin meets Leo, the imposing guildmaster with elite appraisal skills. Instantly, Leo identifies Kelvin as an otherworldly summoner. On his companion's advice, Kelvin doesn't deny it. Over tea, they discuss Cashel's downfall and why the guild couldn't act sooner. Cashel was a noble of the militaristic Tricen kingdom, untouchable without proof. Kelvin unintentionally saved them trouble. Leo shifts topics, explaining that otherworlders exist, notably the heroes of the Holy Empire Doramus. Melfina, responsible for their reincarnations, admits she sent them here, promising details later. A prophecy foresees the Demon King's return, with the heroes destined to fight him. However, with so few high-level adventurers left defending cities, Leo wants Kelvin to fill the gap, gaining freedom by becoming too influential to be controlled. Kelvin, seeing the benefits, agrees. Back at the inn, Claire congratulates him on reaching B rank. Curious, Kelvin asks Melfina about Doramis's heroes. She admits they were chosen mostly for looks and prior knowledge, not divine destiny, and are out there doing their thing. Later, Kelvin revisits the slave market seeking support allies. He again notices the cursed half-elf, Ifil, shunned because her fiery curse burns anyone she touches. Melfina confirms it's from the Fire Dragon King, and breakable only by A-rank holy blessing magic. Kelvin leaves, then returns and buys her outright. On the way back, Ethel, overwhelmed with relief, feels safe for the first time. Kelvin casts Holy Blessing, freeing her from the curse. For the first time, she touches someone without harm and bursts into tears. At the inn, Claire outfits her in maid attire. That night, Kelvin explains his identity and lets her allocate skill points freely. With no extra rooms available, they share a bed. Kelvin, unused to sleeping beside a physical companion, lies awake all night, realizing his adventure has only just begun and that his new allies will bring even greater surprises. A month has passed since Ifil joined the group, and training has been intense. Through constant exploration and battles in the dark purple forest, everyone has been leveling up rapidly, with Ifil developing new abilities at an impressive pace. The routine of defeating monsters, collecting materials, and refining their techniques has strengthened the team quickly. Later, Kelvin and his companions return to the Adventurers Guild to report the defeat of an evil wise tree, a creature strong enough to be considered a threat and with an interesting design, basically a log with spider legs, which is quite something. Ange, the receptionist, congratulates them and shares important news. One more mission, and they can take the promotion exam. Kelvin already has rank A guaranteed, while Ifil is about to reach rank B. During the conversation, Ange mentions a new candy shop she found and invites Ifil to try it together. Without hesitation, Ifil agrees and drags Kelvin along. Later, Kelvin meets Ange at a fountain, waiting for Ifil, who arrives wearing a beautiful dress that doesn't go unnoticed. Thanks to Ange's subtle nudges, Kelvin compliments her, causing Ifil to blush visibly. The afternoon passes peacefully as they enjoy their sweets until Ifil tries to feed Kelvin a piece of cake. The gesture makes nearby men whisper among themselves, and the situation gets worse when Ange decides to do the same with a sweet bun. Soon, passers-by start speculating if Kelvin is caught in a romantic rivalry between two girls. The scene is interrupted by an unwelcome guest, Tabra, the third prince of Tricen, accompanied by his two guards. One, with the typical arrogant noble attitude, suggests that the prince should put Kelvin in his place for being a mere commoner. But Tabra's interest lies elsewhere. Ifil, with a smug smile, he offers to forget everything if Kelvin hands over one of his ladies as compensation. Kelvin wastes no time with unnecessary conversation. The two guards fall within seconds, defeated effortlessly. Then, without raising his voice, Kelvin casts a gravity spell on Tabra, immobilizing him completely. Under the overwhelming pressure, the prince admits he came to Parth on Leo's orders to recruit a powerful adventurer. Kelvin quickly deduces that the target is him, but has no intention of serving under such a weak noble. With the matter settled, Kelvin suggests buying more sweets, and the girls eagerly agree. Meanwhile, in the great cathedral of the Holy Empire of Doramus, the priestess Colette prays before Melfina's statue. Her prayer is answered, and the goddess grants her an audience. Colette reports on the progress of the heroes of Doramus, leaving the goddess satisfied. In response, Melfina gives her an oracle. The heroes must head to the western continent to eradicate a growing evil, and under no circumstances approach Parth. After receiving the message, Colette delivers the order to the newly arrived heroes, who accept the mission without question. Back at the inn, Ifil thanks Kelvin for helping her during the day, though he considers it nothing. However, the conversation takes an unexpected turn when she mentions her worry about not being the kind of woman Kelvin might desire. To him, the idea is absurd, and he dismisses her insecurities without hesitation. The next day, Kelvin reviews the stats of the heroes of Doramus with Gerard, Clotho, and Ephil. To his surprise, the numbers are unimpressive. The heroes seem far weaker than expected, while his own team has grown exponentially. Even so, Kelvin doesn't dwell on it and focuses on his own plans. After several failed attempts, Kelvin finally creates a magic staff from battle-obtained materials. Gerard receives a dreadnought shield and crimson cloak, while Ephil, using her sewing skills, crafts a black sage robe for Kelvin. Just as they finish analyzing their gear, Claire knocks on the door. The guild has summoned Kelvin. In Leo's office, Kelvin learns about a new discovery in the Hermit's Cave, a rank D dungeon where a secret chamber with a sealed demon was found. Leo also mentions that the situation with Tabra has caused diplomatic problems that could lead to conflict between nations. As a result, Kelvin accepts the mission without hesitation. Accompanied by Ephil and Gerard, he heads to the dungeon where they are greeted by Erd, an explorer who explains the situation. Inside the secret chamber, they find a demon chained to a monolith and another sitting on a pile of bones, watching them with a grin. The archdemon Victor. Victor, whose design answers the question, what if a xenomorph from Alien had a wild night with EVA-01, introduces himself and seals the chamber exit before revealing the identity of the chained woman, Sarah, daughter of the Demon King. Melfina intervenes, explaining that 3 Demon Kings existed in the past, and Gustav, the current one, was believed to have no heirs. Victor, however, claims Sarah was never officially recognized, but still wields immense power. As the conversation unfolds, Victor reveals his true plan. He lured the adventurers here intentionally. With Kelvin present, he plans to devour his power using absorption magic to strengthen his body. His ultimate goal is not just to free Sarah, but to consume her energy and become the new Demon King. Yet, as Victor reveals his ambitions, Kelvin simply smiles. Both Melfina and Gerard know him too well. A strong opponent has appeared, and that only means one thing. Kelvin is thrilled about the fight. Kelvin can't hide his excitement. He's about to face a formidable opponent, and adrenaline surges through his body. Victor, amused by the summoner's enthusiasm, decides not to disappoint him. He unleashes his dark magic, casting Army of Hades, raising a horde of skeletal demons from nearby remains. With a snap of his fingers, he sends them charging forward. Kelvin quickly evaluates the threat and confirms the summoned monsters are rank B. Wasting no time, he casts Windshot, destroying a portion of the group while Gerard handles the rest. Victor, impressed by their coordination, praises their skill before suddenly releasing a smoke bomb to conceal himself and launch a surprise attack. However, Kelvin senses his presence and alerts Gerard, who swiftly counters. Despite this, Victor overwhelms Gerard and shifts his target to Kelvin, only to be intercepted by Clotho, who absorbs his magic. Kelvin retaliates with Glorious Sanction, binding Victor's left arm, but it isn't enough. Kelvin decides to boost Gerard's power, enhancing his sword with Vortex Edge, imbuing it with a razor-sharp magical aura. Gerard launches a fierce attack, but Victor makes a move to land a fatal blow on Kelvin. Just before the strike lands, Ephil emerges from the shadows and fires a flame arrow, incinerating Victor's right arm. Seizing the opening, Gerard slashes off his left arm, leaving Victor critically wounded. Kelvin orders the group to fall back, as the effect of Glorious Sanction has expired. Victor, astonished, admits it's the second most serious injury he's ever suffered, blaming the peaceful era for dulling his edge. Refusing to yield, he activates Jin Scrimmage, cloaking himself in a dark, menacing aura. Kelvin and his team try to interrupt the spell, but it's too late. Victor charges forward, and Kelvin erects an earth wall, but the demon shatters through it with ease, forcing Gerard to block with his shield. Even so, Victor corners him. Before he can strike again, Ephil distracts him with another barrage of arrows, giving Gerard a chance to counter. What Victor doesn't expect is for Clotho to regurgitate all of Kelvin's defective weapons, pelting him with a shower of enchanted scrap. Immediately after, Kelvin, Ephil, and Clotho launch a synchronized attack, hurling Victor against a wall, just as a crumbling column begins to collapse onto Sarah Ball, the chained demoness. In a sudden twist, Victor stops the falling stone before it crushes her, gently setting it aside before collapsing himself in surrender. Kelvin instantly sees through the lie. Victor never intended to consume Sarah. If he had, he wouldn't have protected her to the very end. Confronted, Victor confesses that he fabricated the story to ensure Kelvin took the fight seriously. In truth, his mission was to protect Sarah by order of the former Demon King Gustav. A flashback reveals that Victor had been chosen as Sarah's guardian, training her in secret while she remained hidden in the Demon Lord's castle. Fearing that enemies would use her against him, Gustav sealed Sarah in a magic barrier that only a human could break, then sent her far away, hoping she could live in peace. Victor found her and protected her for years, waiting for the old hero to die and the world to stabilize. Before dying, Victor begs Kelvin to take Sarah with him and show her the world. Though Kelvin offers him a place in his party, Victor declines, his loyalty belonging only to Gustav. Without hesitation, Kelvin breaks Sarah's seal, awakening her. The first thing she does is cry, tears of anger and grief, as she curses both her father and Victor for deciding her fate without her consent. Upon leaving the dungeon, Erd is waiting to verify the mission. Not wanting to reveal the truth about Sarah, Kelvin lies and claims that the girl on his back had been possessed by the demon they just defeated. Thanks to a magic disguise brooch, Sarah hides her horns and wings, avoiding suspicion. Later, in Parth, Gerard undergoes an evolution and becomes a commander of the Abyssal Knights, dramatically increasing his power. Meanwhile, Sarah begins exploring the city, marveling at every detail of the outside world. Back at the guild, Kelvin officially reports the mission, which unexpectedly results in his promotion to rank A. Though he hadn't planned on it, Leo had been secretly evaluating him as part of the promotion process. That evening, at the inn, Ange and the guild members throw a party in Kelvin's honor to celebrate his new rank. However, Sarah stays distant, seated quietly while the others rejoice. Kelvin watches her, realizing that despite the new experiences around her, she still carries the burden of her past. That night, as the celebration continues in the background, Sarah remembers Victor's final words and the promise she made. With newfound determination, she vows to make the most of this life she's been given and to discover for herself what it truly means to be free. Kelvin keeps stacking power and upgrades as if he were in an RPG with cheats enabled. This time, it's about officially taming Sarah and adding her to his party. In his room, he proudly displays the results of his rank S smithing and Eiffel's rank S sewing. Sarah doesn't hold back either, showing off her new weapon, Erendite, forged from Victor's armor. Meanwhile, Gerard gets his own upgrade with the magical sword, Dinesleaf. However, neither Kelvin nor Sarah can reveal their weapons yet. According to them, the right moment for the grand reveal hasn't arrived. Before more upgrades and battles, Kelvin wants rice. His enthusiasm for this dish surprises Eiffel and the others, who have no idea what rice even is. They bombard him with questions and wild theories, and Kelvin realizes he has found his most important new quest in this world, to teach them the glorious art of eating rice. Thus, the group sets out in a carriage toward Toraj, the land of rice and the place where Kelvin intends to fulfill his promise to Victor to show Sarah the world. On the way, Sarah notices a river, and Kelvin asks if she wants to learn fishing. Unfamiliar with the term, Sarah listens as Kelvin promises to teach her once they reach Toraj. Their conversation is interrupted when Gerard reports Melfina has disappeared. Kelvin recalls wanting to summon her, but due to her divine status, she cannot remain in this world permanently. As a solution, Melfina proposes sending an avatar while she takes a vacation. Yes, even a goddess decides she needs a break. While they discuss this, Sarah senses people hiding nearby. Right on cue, a group of bandits ambushes them, led by a woman claiming to be part of the Black Wind Band. The carriage driver panics, explaining the band's infamous reputation in Toraj's region, though they were thought to have been wiped out by a rank A adventurer from Trison. Using his appraisal eye, Kelvin assesses the bandits and decides Sarah will handle them alone, without Erendite, just to make it interesting. Sarah steps confidently from the carriage while the bandits think she's easy prey. One of them, Ensu, tries to grab her, and is knocked out in less than a second with a single hand. The others, panicking, attack as a group, only to be effortlessly dismantled by Sarah. Even Gilda, a bandit wielding a giant hammer with over 200 strength, is defeated with insulting ease. From the carriage, Kelvin remarks this is no surprise. Sarah is level 75, while the bandits barely reach level 25-30. With the bandits captured, their leader warns that their boss is even stronger, around level 70. Kelvin's curiosity is piqued. The group finally arrives at Toraj, a place resembling a feudal Japan isekai setting. Gazing at the sea, Sarah recalls Victor's promise to teach her how to swim and eagerly asks Kelvin to be her teacher. Though he tries to keep composed, Kelvin is visibly nervous and agrees. At the Toraj Adventurers Guild, they turn in the captured bandits and meet Mist, the guildmaster. Kelvin learns Mist and Leo were former adventuring companions, with Leo once bearing the title the Analyzer. Mist provides more intel on the Black Wind Band. Rumor has it they were defeated by Kristoff, a famous Trison adventurer, yet have returned, now trafficking people as slaves. Everyone knows the band operates in Toraj, but no one can act without risking conflict with Trison. Kelvin decides the best way to find them is to use Sarah's detection skills. She locates a level 50 individual at the village entrance, immediately catching Kelvin's interest. Meanwhile, elsewhere in Toraj, the heroes of Daramus arrive. Toya, one of the heroes, wants to intervene with the bandits, but his companion Setsuna insists their mission is to head west, following Melfina's guidance. Toya refuses to ignore those in need, sparking a heated argument. Mist remembers Kelvin asked her to brief them on the situation and realizes he has a plan. In the bandits' hideout, one of them, Hope, is about to do something terrible to an enslaved girl named Ruka when Kelvin's group bursts in, annihilating him instantly. Meanwhile, Kristoff, the supposed hero who defeated the Black Wind Band, is revealed as the true leader. He converses with his ally Prizra, discussing how Trison uses them for slave capture and will likely abandon them if things go south. Before they can continue scheming, Kelvin storms in. Kristoff assumes Kelvin came to fight, but Kelvin makes it clear he doesn't even see him as a worthy rival. For Kelvin, this is just a warm-up for something greater. Toya and the heroes of Deramis finally arrive at the hideout, only to find all slaves safe and the bandits already defeated. One of the freed captives mentions their true savior is still fighting the remaining leaders and may not survive. Without hesitation, Toya rushes to the battlefield, only to find Kristoff and his allies already lying defeated. The only one still standing is Kelvin, smiling confidently. Confused, Toya assumes Kelvin is the head of the Black Wind Band, and that the criminals are the adventurers. It seems a clash between the heroes and Kelvin's group is about to begin, but Kelvin has been waiting for this with his trademark grin. From the very start, Kelvin decides to play the villain purely for fun. With an arrogant air, he mocks the heroes of Deramis, letting them believe his group is the Black Wind Band. Boasting about how easily he defeated the bandits, he immediately provokes Toya and his team, who quickly proclaim that they will deliver justice. Far from worried, Kelvin laughs brazenly, claiming the heroes are too weak and offering a challenge, him alone against all of them. If he wins, the heroes must testify against Kristoff and his group. Toya, clinging to his sense of justice, insists the fight should be one-on-one between him and Kelvin, but Setsuna stops him, convinced Kelvin is hiding something and that falling into his game would be a mistake. With his team's support, Toya finally accepts the challenge. They move to a more open area for the battle. Meanwhile, Ethel, unhurried, prepares sandwiches for everyone to enjoy while watching. Relaxed as if on a picnic, Kelvin explains that this fight isn't just about winning, it's also to improve his weakness, fighting multiple opponents at once. He also plans to test his new artifact, the Skill Devourer. On the other side, the heroes activate their fairy blessings and launch their assault without hesitation. Toya, using his close combat prowess, tries to pressure Kelvin up close. To his surprise, Kelvin praises the tactic before unleashing a Radiant Lance spell, forcing Toya and Setsuna to block. Before Kelvin can continue, Nana summons her tamed monster Money, which breathes fire his way. Kelvin dodges swiftly and seizes the opportunity to use the Skill Devourer on Miyabi, stealing her parallel thought ability. Observing, Gerard notes that the Skill Devourer was forged from Victor's armor, while Sarah explains it allows Kelvin to copy and swap abilities during battle. Furious over what just happened, Toya charges again, this time trying to keep Kelvin from using more magic. Even that fails. Kelvin blocks the strike with one hand, wielding Sarah's rank S martial arts skill. Setsuna tries to intervene, but Kelvin raises an adamantite wall to split them up. Setsuna slices through it effortlessly, proving she won't be held back. Using the confusion, Kelvin appears behind the rubble and hurls a giant fireball at Setsuna. Toya, determined to protect her, intercepts it with his sword. Proud, he declares he will defeat the Demon King with his unshakable resolve. Before he can continue, Setsuna slaps him, tears of frustration streaming down her face. She reminds him of how they were summoned to this world and all they've endured, scolding him for not trusting his team and begging him to stop acting alone. Realizing his mistake, Toya apologizes for trying to shoulder the battle by himself. The heroes begin coordinating, but Kelvin remains unstoppable. Now with an organized strategy, the heroes execute their best plan. A light fairy blinds Kelvin, nullifying his detection ability. Nana and Miyabi combine ice and dark magic to immobilize him, while Toya and Setsuna ready the final blow. For a moment, Kelvin appears trapped, but in truth, this was all part of his test. Using the parallel thought he stole from Miyabi, Kelvin summons his adamantite guardians and casts a new spell, Radiant Fire Rain. The magical explosion frees him and defeats the heroes one by one, ending the match in a crushing victory. When Toya regains consciousness, Kelvin explains the truth. His group isn't the Black Wind Band, but the ones who saved the slaves. Ashamed, Toya sincerely apologizes for wrongly accusing them. Kelvin, harboring no grudge, assures him he doesn't mind, as long as they keep their word. Accepting his loss, Toya agrees to honor the deal. Kelvin's expression shifts to a mischievous grin as he states his condition. Everyone must strip naked. With the slave situation resolved, Kelvin, Mist, and a guild receptionist watch as Luca, her mother, and the other freed captives depart in a wagon toward a new life. Satisfied with the outcome, Mist remarks that from now on, they'll handle interrogating Kristoff and the remaining members of the Black Wind Band. Before leaving, Mist asks Kelvin about his next destination, and with a mischievous smile, he replies that he still has a fun punishment pending. The heroes of Deramis, now clad in beachwear, find themselves in a cave battling a gigantic, monstrous octopus. This was the real reason Kelvin had demanded they strip, not what everyone had initially imagined. From the shore, Kelvin silently observes while Sarah fishes and Ethel and Clotho set up a picnic. Though Kelvin offers tips on fighting more efficiently, the heroes still struggle to bring the creature down. After a long, chaotic battle, they finally manage to defeat it, and Kelvin signals the start of the picnic, rewarding them with a well-earned break. As they enjoy the food, the group mentions Colette, the priestess of Daramis, prompting Toya to share details about how she summoned them into this world. Curious, Kelvin compares their experiences and notes that while the heroes of Daramis were summoned, he arrived here through reincarnation after his death. Changing the subject, he poses a critical question. How do they think they would fare in a rank S dungeon with their current strength? Toya's answer is blunt. They wouldn't stand a chance and would have no choice but to flee. At that moment, Sarah unexpectedly hooks a sinister dragon, the dungeon's boss. As the demoness engages the beast, Kelvin reflects with Toya on the responsibilities that come with power and how their actions affect those they've sworn to protect. Toya, resolute, vows that his group will continue training until they're strong enough to face any foe. Impressed by his determination, Kelvin declares that they've passed his test and joins the battle to aid Sarah. Afterward, Kelvin and his team bid farewell to the heroes of Daramis as they board a ship for their next destination. As a gesture of goodwill, Kelvin gifts them enchanted pendants that, according to him, slightly boost their stats, though they hide a secret function he hopes never to use. Watching the ship fade into the horizon, Gerard approaches, sensing something weighs on Kelvin's mind. Kelvin wonders aloud if the kingdom of Lizea, the one responsible for his homeland's destruction, lies across the sea. Gerard confirms it. Kelvin then poses another question. If they faced Lizea now, could they win? After consideration, Gerard believes that with the power they've amassed, victory is possible. Still, before even thinking about war, Kelvin intends to first defeat the remaining Rank S monsters on the current continent. At that moment, Sarah arrives with news. A messenger from Mist has brought a special request. Someone important wants to meet them. The mysterious summons turn out to be from Tsubaki Fujiwara, the Queen of Toraj, who, grateful for their help defeating the Black Wind Band and the Rank S Dragon, wishes to hold a grand banquet in their honor. However, due to strained relations with Trison, she can't host a lavish event, but intends to reward them nonetheless. When asked what he desires, Kelvin surprises everyone. He wants the right to purchase rice in Toraj. Amused by the request, Tsubaki grants him unlimited access. If they ever run out, they only need send word to receive more. To commemorate the occasion, the queen hosts a modest banquet, allowing the group to enjoy a relaxing evening before their next adventure. Days later, as Ifil serves Kelvin a traditional Japanese-style meal, he can't help but praise her culinary talents. At that moment, Tsubaki enters, professing her love for Ifil's cooking, and seizing the chance to try persuading Kelvin to stay in Toraj. With a flirtatious tone, she hints that working for her could bring great rewards, but Kelvin declines without hesitation, affirming that his path lies in Parth. Though the queen doesn't seem surprised by Kelvin's refusal, she decides to make their journey easier by granting them access to Toraj's teleportation portal. Upon learning that the guild had long known about the portal yet never mentioned it, Kelvin can't help but feel betrayed by Leo, who clearly kept the detail from him on purpose. Arriving back in Parth, Kelvin discovers that his recent meeting with Queen Tsubaki has become a hot topic among adventurers, thanks to Ange. Preferring to downplay it, he insists he has no intention of settling in Toraj permanently. With his reputation growing and his team expanding, Kelvin decides it's time to acquire a proper home. Once settled, they receive a visit from Luca and her mother, who will now serve as caretakers of the estate. That night, just as Kelvin is preparing to rest, Melfina finally returns, manifesting in the physical avatar she had mentioned before. Her presence now feels more real than ever, marking a new chapter in Kelvin's journey. Sitting before a plate of Ifil's cooking, Melfina savors every bite but can't help complaining about how difficult it was to locate Kelvin. Gerard, puzzled, takes the chance to ask who she truly is. Melfina formally introduces herself to the group, making it clear she was the one responsible for Kelvin's reincarnation. Later, in the living room, she asks everyone to simply call her Mel to avoid trouble with Daramis. As thanks for successfully summoning her, she bestows upon Kelvin a special blessing with two effects. Once per month, it will nullify a fatal wound, and it grants him the ability to summon heroes. While Sarah and Mel square off in a sparring match, Luca and Gerard watch closely, and outside the mansion, Kelvin quietly reflects, wondering if the heroes of Daramis have already reached the western continent and pondering his new summoning power. After the match, Sarah and Mel head to the baths, where Eiffel tends to them, and they discuss Kelvin's unusually contemplative behavior. Mel guesses his unease is tied to his newly acquired hero summoning ability. Later in the garden, Melfina meets with Kelvin, who asks her about the true significance of heroes. Rather than answer directly, Mel recounts the origin of the Demon King and his unique ability, Papilla, which multiplies the evil within its bearer and nullifies all incoming damage. The only force capable of countering this power are heroes, beings whose very nature is foreign to this world. Though Kelvin managed to adapt thanks to his memory loss, he can't help but feel concern for the heroes of Doramus, who were pulled from their world without warning. Seeing his unease, Mel suggests performing a hero summoning through reincarnation and explains the two possible methods. That night, Kelvin makes his choice. Restoring his energy with one of Ethel's potions, he begins the summoning ritual under Melfina's guidance. From another dimension, a chosen soul customizes its new life, selecting abilities, age, and appearance until finally materializing within the summoning circle. Standing before Kelvin is a young girl named Rio, tears of joy streaming down her face as she thanks him for granting her a new chance at life. Exhausted, she collapses into unconsciousness, and shortly after, Kelvin also faints from the effort. The next morning, Rio awakens in her own room, brimming with curiosity, and wanders into the garden where Kelvin awaits. Walking together, Kelvin reveals that he too was reincarnated into this world, having sacrificed his memories for additional abilities. Rio shares her story. She had spent her entire life sick and confined to a hospital, with books as her only escape. Now, with a healthy body and a vast new world to explore, she can hardly contain her happiness. Determined to make the most of this second chance, she asks to join Kelvin's party. He agrees, proposing they consider themselves adoptive siblings from different lands. Rio, delighted, accepts and begins calling him Brother Kel, while Kelvin suggests a new name for her, Ryan, which she happily embraces. Kelvin awakens in the middle of the night to find Melfina, Sarah, and Ryan camped around him as he slept. Despite his surprise, he can't help but feel pleased seeing them resting peacefully by his side. At dawn, he leads everyone into the dark purple forest for training. Not only do Sarah, Gerard, and Clotho clear out monsters, but his maids and Rian also gain experience through his party's shared EXP technique. Though they don't need to fight directly, they must stay close to him, prompting Kelvin to wonder if this is some sort of magical Bluetooth. During the session, a shadow wolf appears, which Kelvin easily subdues and decides to keep as a pet. Ryan names it Alex. But they are not alone. Erd and her group are also in the forest hunting monsters to raise their rank, only to be demoralized upon seeing Kelvin surrounded by women. When they attempt to continue their hunt, they realize Sarah and Gerard have already wiped out all the monsters. Back home, Ryan trains diligently with Gerard and Sarah, showing rapid improvement and even managing to communicate with Alex, deepening their bond. That night, 14 assassins encircle the mansion. Sarah detects their presence but can't pinpoint them directly, proof they're using special skills to conceal their traces. Kelvin borrows Ethel's remote vision to locate the leader and deems this the perfect trial for Ryan. Before sending her into battle, he equips her with a mini Clotho, loads her slave network with remote vision and analysis, and arms her with a resonant mithril sword. The intruders, operatives from Trison with ties to Kristoff, cross the threshold, unaware they've walked into a trap. Kelvin and Sarah watch safely from inside the mansion as Ryan and Alex dispatch the assassins with remarkable skill. Once the invaders are neutralized, Kelvin allows Clotho to clean the area and personally goes after the stragglers attempting to flee. Meanwhile, in the Trison castle, Emperor Zell Trison summons his children and generals to discuss the accusations of his involvement with Kristoff and the slave trade. Though they deny all ties, Toraj, Deramus, and Gon are forming an alliance against them, a move that could ignite war. During the heated debate, Tristan suggests launching a preemptive strike before the other nations have a chance to grow stronger, arguing that while they forged diplomatic ties, Trison focused on bolstering its military might. Some agree with him, but Shutora, one of the Emperor's daughters, questions whether now is truly the right time. Her brother Asgrad, eager to test his new dragons in combat, supports Tristan's plan. The generals' votes split evenly, with Dandalba opposing and Asgrad in favor, leaving the final decision to Clive Therese, who is absent from the meeting. To resolve the deadlock, Dan sends his son Jin to find him. The young man, uneasy as he traverses Clive's quarters filled with female soldiers and an unsettling aura, finally reaches his chamber. Picking his way through the exhausted bodies of women strewn across the floor, he finds the general in the midst of his own strategic exercise with his personal unit. The messenger informs Clive that his presence is required. Rising to his feet unclothed, Clive recognizes him as his colleague's son, and with a sly grin, pointedly asks, "Tell me, do you think I'm beautiful?" Riding swiftly through Crest Forest, southwest of Gon, Kelvin and his party head toward an elven village. Along the way, Ethel mentions an odd sense of familiarity with the area, which Kelvin attributes to her elven blood. However, Sarah finds it strange that elves would live on the eastern continent as they have historically always resided in the west. Melfina clarifies, explaining that over a decade ago, a faction of elves migrated east and now live under Gon's protection. A flashback recalls Kelvin's meeting with Leo, who revealed that Tryson had been making suspicious moves along multiple borders, sporadic skirmishes, and possible slave raids. Though Tryson has yet to show any intent to attack Parth or Toraj, the threat of a future invasion remains real. Leo is certain war is inevitable. It's only a matter of time before Triton strikes. Due to these tensions, Lion King Leonhard of Gaunt requested a personal meeting with Kelvin, sending him an official letter of invitation. This meeting will also serve as Kelvin's Rank S promotion exam. When their carriage arrives at the village, they are met with a hail of arrows. An elven squad blocks their path, demanding to know their intentions. Unfazed, Kelvin explains, and after a brief exchange, Nelrus, the village elder, appears. Nelrus's face turns pale at the sight of Eiffel, calling her Lumil and wondering aloud how she could still be alive. The confusion lifts when Kelvin clarifies that she is not Lumil, but another person entirely. Inside the village, Nelrus apologizes for the initial hostility and recounts Lumil's tragic tale. 20 years ago, the elves lived peacefully on the western continent until a fire dragon appeared demanding vengeance. Furious, it accused one of the elves of humiliating it and threatened to annihilate the village unless the culprit was handed over. The dragon's rampage nearly destroyed half the settlement before Lumil, a highly esteemed elf, stepped forward and pleaded for the dragon's wrath to end. Upon seeing her, the dragon declared she was not the one it sought, but offered a bargain. It would spare the village if Lumil became its wife. With no other choice, Lumil agreed and departed with the dragon. A decade later, her lifeless body was discovered in a forest, ravaged by wounds. Fearing the dragon's return, the elves fled east and sought refuge under Gon's protection. Melfina confirms that half-elves can only be born from a union between humans and elves, so the dragon could not have fathered Eiffel. All signs point to Lumil being her mother. Moving to the present crisis, Nelras explains that the village has been repeatedly attacked by monsters breaching their protective barrier, abducting elves. Kelvin's group offers their assistance, requesting permission to make defensive modifications, which Nelras readily grants. Night falls, and the invasion begins. A Tryson commander, following General Tristan's orders, leads a squad of soldiers and beasts against the village, unaware of Kelvin's meticulously prepared ambush. Melfina cloaks the village in a dense magical mist. Sarah shapes a cursed pit with dark magic. Gerard stands guard at the entrance, ready to cut down any intruders. Eiffel, wielding her newly acquired shadow bow, picks off enemies with deadly precision. The Tryson soldiers fall one after another before they can react. Upon hearing that the fourth unit has been annihilated, the vice commander unleashes their trump card. Ryan and Melfina arrive at the enemy camp just as the monstrous gigant lord is released. Melfina entrusts the battle to Ryan and Alex, a test of whether Ryan is ready to stand as a true adventurer. Ryan charges with determination, only to have her blade shatter against the beast. Regaining her composure, she calls on Clotho, who spits out a fresh pair of enchanted twin blades. Together with Alex, Ryan launches a relentless assault, severely weakening the gigant lord. But the creature reveals its true form, the Furnace Lord, engulfed in searing flames. Without hesitation, Ryan gathers her energy and unleashes her ultimate technique, Generate Edge, piercing the Furnace Lord and ending the battle in a single decisive strike. Back at the village, Kelvin faces a new foe, General Clive, flanked by 5 elite soldiers. Clive hurls a devastating spell, forcing Kelvin to block at the last possible moment. Meeting him eye to eye, Kelvin feels the exhilarating thrill of a worthy opponent for the first time in ages. Kelvin and Eiffel ready themselves for battle as Clive hovers above, flanked by 4 elite soldiers, his gaze fixed on Eiffel with brazen admiration. Without pretense, he declares his desire to claim Eiffel as his own and make her his slave, attempting to woo her with syrupy words and a confident smile. Before he can continue, Kelvin cuts him off with a direct attack, his stance leaving no doubt no one lays a hand on his woman. Seizing the moment, Kelvin casts an appraisal spell and discovers that Clive is a reincarnated being. Realizing he has been exposed, Clive grows irritated, quickly deducing that Kelvin must also hail from another world. Kelvin instructs Eiffel to withdraw quietly as he transmutes the mountain beneath his feet into 4 massive obsidian javelins, launching them toward Clive. Yet his opponent's helix barrier absorbs the assault unharmed. Clive commands his enthralled soldiers to strike, their loyalty bound by his dominance and personal allure. However, his confidence falters when an arrow from Eiffel pierces his barrier, forcing him onto the defensive. Moments later, 4 of Kelvin's adamantite golems rise, prepared to engage. Impressed by their craftsmanship, Clive leaves his soldiers to deal with them and charges Kelvin directly. The duel escalates, Kelvin quickly discerning that Clive values neither life nor loyalty, willing to sacrifice his own men for victory. Such arrogance and disregard disgust him. In a turning point, Kelvin shatters Clive's barrier and carves a scar across his face. Enraged, Clive smashes Kelvin's staff, but Clotho devours it before it can fall into enemy hands. Driven to desperation, Clive summons Tempest Barrier, a rank S spell unleashing a raging magical storm. Unshaken, Kelvin orders Clotho to retrieve the black Flagstaff disaster. With one earth-splitting strike, he annihilates the barrier, cleaving through a mountain and severing Clive's legs. Crippled and terrified, Clive begs for his life. Suddenly, a portal rips open and General Phase, astride a colossal golem, intervenes, teleporting Clive away moments before the killing blow. Unbothered by Clive's fate, Phase introduces himself as the mastermind of the assault and mocks Kelvin, boasting that this outcome counts as a victory for Trison. Kelvin, indifferent, deems it a draw and returns to the village. Meanwhile, in Trison, Clive awakens shackled to an operating table, condemned to serve as a test subject for cursed weapons under Phase's command. Each time he nears death, they heal him, only to subject him to further torment. Back at the Elven village, the elves and Kelvin's party celebrate their hard-won victory with a lavish feast. From a nearby hilltop, Kelvin reflects in silence until Ethel joins him, presenting a locket that once belonged to her mother. Kelvin gently fastens it in her hair, reminding her that her past and present are now intertwined. Ethel vows to serve him forever, and Kelvin accepts with quiet satisfaction. They are soon joined by the rest of the group and a petite elf who unexpectedly reveals herself to be Leonhart Gone in disguise. The Lion King confirms that Kelvin has passed his Rank S exam. The official ceremony will be held in 4 days, featuring simulated battles against other Rank S adventurers, something Kelvin eagerly anticipates. Thus, Black Summoner continues to deliver epic battles, charismatic characters, and strategic action. Since his arrival in this world, Kelvin has embraced his passion for combat, facing ever stronger foes and forging an unbreakable team. For fans of reincarnation tales with battle-obsessed protagonists, Black Summoner offers a solid skill system, spectacular fights, and just enough humor to keep the pace lively and engaging. If you're craving more, don't miss the light novel, where the story expands with new adventures, enemies, and even greater challenges. Let us know in the comments what you thought of this series, and if you'd like to see more summaries like this one. Subscribe and hit the bell so you won't miss the next video. And if you enjoyed it, a like always helps support more epic content. See you in the next adventure.